Hi there, welcome back to Rent Prep for Landlords. I'm Andrew Schultz, Community Manager here at Rent Prep. I'm also a licensed real estate broker and property manager with over 14 years of experience in the rental property and property management industries. On today's episode, we're going to be talking all about house hacking. This is the first in a multi-part video series. And on today's video, what we're going to be talking about are the basics. What is house hacking? We're going to talk about some pros and some cons to house hacking as a first investment. We've got a lot to get to today, so let's go ahead and jump on in. All right, so we're going to start things off at the beginning. What exactly is house hacking? At its most basic level, house hacking is when you live in a property and rent out the other bedrooms or other areas of the property out to other people to live in or use. That's it. It's a very, very basic concept in its simplicity. When most people think of house hacking, they typically think in terms of a single family home, something that they are house hacking where they're renting out the spare bedrooms in their single family residence or something like that. Essentially, you live in one bedroom and you rent the other bedrooms out to your tenants. But there are a couple of other options out there for house hacking that a lot of people don't think of. For example, multifamily properties can very, very easily be house hacked. Let's say that you have a 4-unit rental property and you live in one of the 4 units. Renting out the other 3 units in the building, you are essentially owning and operating a rental property, but many people will refer to this as a house hack as well when they're living in one of the units. If you really wanted to maximize the value of your house hack in a scenario like this, you could even rent out the spare bedrooms in your apartment if you had some available in addition to renting out the other apartments that are available in the building. There are some opportunities out there to house hack other areas of your property as well. So, for instance, if you have a home that sits on a sizable piece of property, you may be able to add accessory dwelling units or ADUs to the existing property, which can then be rented out for additional revenue. We're starting to see more ADUs being built here in the Buffalo region as more and more people start to explore options such as this. If you have a garage or if you have an outbuilding or a storage area that's not being used, you may be able to rent those areas out as part of your house hack as well. Old barns can be awesome for this if you have a property that has an old barn. If the barn, is structurally stable, you could very easily rent that barn out to one or more people that need storage space for vehicles or materials or whatever it is that you feel safe storing in the building. In a lot of areas, indoor heated parking for vehicles goes for a premium. So if you have, for instance, a heated garage that you're not using all of the bays in, you may even be able to rent out some storage space in your garage to a vehicle collector who needs someplace to keep their summertime cars warm for the winter months. You may even be able to do something with an unused basement, or if you have perhaps a large room that can be split into multiple smaller rooms, something along those lines. So for instance, if you have a big bedroom that could possibly be split into 2 smaller but still reasonably sized bedrooms, that might be something that's worth looking into. Basements can be a little bit trickier. You're definitely going to need to check the code in your area to see if basements can be used as a living area. And more than likely, you're going to wind up adding either some egress windows or egress doors in order to get the basement to the point where it will meet proper building code. But depending on the rental market in your area, it may make sense to make those changes to your home in order to be able to maximize the house hacking value. For instance, I know that up in the Toronto area, this is a very, very common thing for people to rent out their basements as a totally separate rental unit. Not always being done correctly, it's not always being done legally, but there are a lot of people that do that in the Toronto region just to help supplement with some extra income to help pay down that mortgage. I think my favorite house hack story is actually from an Airbnb that I stayed in out in Cleveland a couple years back. We had rented a single family home on Airbnb for a long weekend trip that we needed to take to Cleveland. And it turns out that the home that we stayed in was actually owned by a full-time flight attendant, and they list the home as available on Airbnb when they're not staying in the home. So essentially, anytime that they know that they're going to be traveling for work, they put the place up on Airbnb so that they can bring in some extra revenue. So essentially, they're getting paid to go to work and do their actual job, in addition to getting paid for someone sleeping in their home when they're not physically there and not physically able to. That way, the way that they had the home set up was actually pretty unique because the owner kept a lot of their own personal belongings and things there, but they were locked away in such a way that the home was still very much usable as an Airbnb while still being usable for that property owner when they come home between flights or between trips or whatever the case may be. I just thought that that was a really, really interesting way to house hack a property and put it on Airbnb. One of the most appealing parts of house hacking is the fact that because you're going to be living in the rental property, you have a lot of options when it comes to the financing end of it. For instance, if you served in the military, you are probably going to be eligible for a VA loan, so you could be walking in with pretty close to 0% down payment. Likely you're just going to be paying some closing costs, attorney's fees, things of that nature. There are also FHA products out there that are available to owner-occupants, and you're looking at about a 3.5% down payment on a typical FHA product. The best part of FHA loans, and a lot of new investors especially don't realize this, is that you can finance up to 4 units, 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit property on an FHA loan. So if you find a 4-unit multifamily property, you could walk into that property on an FHA loan having only put 3.5% down towards your down payment. Many investors also fail to realize that there are conventional products out there that don't require a 20% down payment as well. There are several different options out there in the 5% down payment range on a conventional loan. And the nice thing about that is that it means that it's being underwritten using conventional loan criteria, which are much, much, much less stringent than an FHA or a VA appraisal in terms of what they expect for quality of property. A good example of this is that an FHA or a VA appraiser may require chipping or peeling paint to be scraped and painted versus a conventional appraiser who is typically not as concerned with minor stuff like chipping and peeling paint and things of that nature. Now, because you're going to be living in the building and other people are going to be paying you rent, your overall cost of housing is going to go way down. And in many instances, you're going to wind up living for free. Obviously, you're going to need to do some deal analysis to see what the numbers are going to look like on the property before you purchase it, see if your house hack actually makes sense, but it's very, very reasonable to find yourself in a situation where you are house hacking and essentially living at a very, very reduced or free rate, essentially. This is also an excellent way for you to grow your wealth as well as pay down your mortgage faster with passive income. If you're in a position where all of your bills are paid and there's leftover income from those rents after everything is taken care of, you could apply those funds directly to your mortgage in order to reduce your overall principal. Another good option is to save those funds up for a down payment on another piece of investment property. Obviously, that one won't be owner-occupied, so you might have a little bit higher down payment. Or if there's a project coming up that you want to do that would improve the property for you and your tenants, then it might be worth tackling that project. Owning and operating a rental property is also a great way to open yourself up to the wonderful world of tax deductions. So some of those home improvement projects that you're talking about doing that would otherwise have come completely out of your pocket can now be paid for using the rent funds that you're receiving. And many of them will also now be tax deductible, or at least a portion of them will be tax deductible as improvements or repairs to your rental property. You'll also have depreciation and interest and other deductions that you're going to be able to take as well. There are a ton of deductions when it comes to owning and operating rental property. You're going to want to make sure that you're taking advantage of those whenever possible. This isn't really just limited to your capital improvement projects either. If you wanted to add, say, a nice grill to your home and give the tenants the ability to go out and use it, you should be able to deduct at least a portion of that from your taxes. Essentially, you're going to want to become BFFs with your tax accountant and get a much more in-depth explanation as to what you can and cannot deduct. But this is a major, major factor when it comes to owning investment real estate. Overall, house hacking is a great way for you to dip your toes in the water of residential real estate, but it's not all bennies and barbecues. There are some pretty serious downsides to house hacking or just owning investment real estate in general as well that need to be considered. Sharing your home with other people means just that, sharing your home. You're likely going to experience a reduction in your overall privacy, especially if you are doing a house hack in a single-family home. I'm not saying that people should be wandering in and out of your bedroom or other private space, but knowing that there's going to be somebody hanging out in the living room when you get home from work and just want to sit and watch the news, that's something that you definitely need to consider if you're considering doing a house hack on a single family. Another thing to consider is that the repair that you may have been willing to put off because it's something that isn't important to you may now need to be done more immediately because you have tenants that you're responsible to. So a great example of this would be a through-the-door style water dispenser and ice dispenser in a refrigerator. If you have a fridge with a water and an ice dispenser in the door and it works when the tenants move in, there's going to be an expectation that it continues to work all the way through their tenancy. So if that's not a feature that you necessarily care so much about, you may be inclined to let it go, but having tenants means that you need to hold yourself to a little bit higher standard in a situation such as this and make sure that you're effecting those repairs as needed. Additional people living in the home will almost certainly mean additional wear and tear as well. Wear and tear is not something that you're going to be able to charge to your tenants when they do move out. Damage, yes, but wear and tear, normal wear and tear from just living in the property, not so much. You're likely going to find yourself doing a lot more repairs and upkeep in the common areas such as kitchens, bathrooms, and hallways than you would in areas such as the bedrooms in a situation like this, but you're definitely going to experience more in terms of maintenance in the common areas when you have multiple tenants that are sharing a space. So what do you do if you want to sell the home, but you still have tenants living in the home alongside you? If those tenants have leases, chances are that their lease would survive the sale of the property, but that's going to depend on the state that you live in. Does someone really want to buy your house hacked house, single family with 4 tenants that they don't know? You may find yourself in a situation where you want or need to sell and either need to terminate, buy out, or wait out the lease agreements that you have with your tenants. And if someone doesn't want to move at the end of their lease term, it could turn to an even longer battle. Last con that I wanted to bring up is that renting to friends or family members could be disastrous to your personal relationships. I've known several landlords who were screwed over by friends or family members who they were just trying to help out. You want to try to help where you can, but you also need to ensure that you aren't sinking your own ship in the process. If you're going to do this with friends or family, you need to treat it like a business relationship, and you need to understand that even if you do, that they may not. So are you ready to evict your cousin or your best friend? Because if not, you should not rent to them. House hacking is an awesome way to jump into the residential real estate investing market with less out of pocket than you may typically expect. It's a great option for many, but it doesn't come without substantial risk that needs to be considered before you jump in. House hacking is an awesome way to jump into the residential real estate investing market with less out of pocket than you may typically expect. It's a great option for many, but it doesn't come without substantial risks, and you need to consider those before you jump in. So there you have it, an intro on house hacking. As I mentioned at the start of the video, this is the first in a multi-part series, and our next video is going to be on financing and operating a house hack. Have you ever house hacked before? What market did you do it in, and what were your experiences? Do us a favor, drop us a comment down below. I'm Andrew Schultz with RentPrep.com, and I'll talk to you soon.